Hey there, folks. This is Screen Watching, your favorite podcast that discusses the world of screen. We're talking to TV, we're talking to movies. And we are going to fill the brief entirely this week as we talk about the movies with a brand new mummy movie called Lee Cronin's The Mummy. My co-host Simon Foster, who we'll be hearing from in just a moment, wrote on the spreadsheet The Mummy, but no, it's called Lee Cronin's The Mummy. And I will expect him to address the film as such as the podcast goes on. I'm going to take a look at a brand new Apple TV show. It's called Margo's Got Money Troubles. And before we even get to my review, just telling you, this is one of the shows to watch this year, and I'm going to tell you why. We are also going to take a brief detour into Simon's adolescence with a film from when he was a young chap called Meteor. It's just popped up on HBO Max here in Australia, and Simon, for some reason, convinced me to press play on this thing, and we'll have a bit of a chat about that. And then we are going to wind out this podcast with two very big questions. One regarding a little TV show called Euphoria, which is back for season 3, and we have a question about that. But then also, Crime 101 is a film which a whole bunch of people have been watching there on the Prime Video the last few weeks. It has done some pretty monster numbers there, as I understand, but I only got around to watching it a few days ago, and I'm like, wait a sec, what? Question mark. What is that question? You can only really find out if you stick around to the end of this podcast as we dive into the world of screen and the watching of. My name's Dan, joined by Simon. Let's start the pod.
This is not like TV, only better.
Television! Teacher! Mother!
Secret lover.
What, that's it? That's your movie?
Well, I said that I had an idea for a movie.
All right, Simon, we are into this.
Dan
now.
Barrett, how are you, sir? Look, I've been very well. Thanks for asking. I've been very well. During this week, my wife and I did a little bit of op shopping, as we're prone to do. And you mentioned my youth. Look what I got. And for those who aren't watching this, this is the Close Encounters of the Third Kind board game. Remember when board games, movie tie-ins were kind of the thing? Because along with Meteor, as you pronounced it, Close Encounters is the movie of my youth.
So am I supposed to pronounce it like a opera Australian? Meteor, mate.
Meteor. Just run it in together.
Meteor.
So I found this Close Encounters of the Third Kind board game, and I've just been hugging it ever since. What a find. Board games. Have they ever really gone away?
I didn't realize we were doing show and tell on the podcast.
A little bit of show and tell.
Search around my desk right now. I can show you the McDonald's Happy Meal toy I've got here of Mario.
For God's sake. No, it doesn't cut it. I've got a 50-year-old board game here. What can you match with? I haven't opened it yet.
Mamma mia!
Nice try. Nice try. Anyway.
Yeah, no, there's nothing else I can draw on my desk here.
We should really jump into the reviews. It's going to be much more interesting.
Look, probably should. Look, Simon, let's dive first into... Look, because we've got a bit of genre stuff towards the back end of the podcast. Let's start with Margo's Got Money Troubles, which is debuting this week on the Apple TV. In fact, people can watch the first 3 episodes right now, and I reckon once they watch those 3, they're going to want to keep on watching. Let's take a look at the trailer, and let's have a chat about what we thought of the show on the other end.
I need to make money. I'm open to any job there is. Digging ditches, even.
Looks like you've already dug one.
In order to earn income for my child, I've been doing some work on the internet.
For your first taco pics, we'll make you a scary girl.
I'll marinate on it.
This is not you.
Well, my mom worked at Hooters and my father was a pro wrestler. Tell me what's me.
You have fans? It's a popular website.
So look, straight up, I was really concerned sitting down to watch Margo's Got Money Troubles, and largely because this is a show from David E Kelley. Now, just to be straight up about this, David E Kelley is fundamental. Like, he is a building block of my TV viewing DNA. I grew up watching picket fences. Like, this is one of the first sort of grown-up adult programs that I remember watching. So I was about 13, 14 years old when that show started. And certainly I was watching other shows made for adults by that point. Like, it wasn't like I just went straight from He-Man to watching picket fences. At the time, I would have been watching Northern Exposure and The X-Files and, all sorts of other programs. But picket fences was a program really made for adults. There wasn't really a lot of crossover for younger viewers to really latch onto. And what was kind of interesting about Picket Fences as a program is just that it played around these interesting ideas of where the law intersects with human behavior. And so, if you don't remember Picket Fences, it was this sort of small town show set in Wisconsin, and it was about a family with the patriarch, played by Tom Skerritt, his wife Kathy Baker, their 3 kids. Because the father works in law enforcement, like he's the town sheriff, he's got some deputies under him. There's the local lawyer, there's the judge. Like the legal framework surrounding this family was really, really important to what the show was about. And so I grew up watching a lot of Picket Fences and a lot of David E. Kelley's approach to morality and to how characters interact and what they believe and what they feel and how that governs, their interrelationships. And so as I matured as a TV viewer, I watched David E. Kelley mature as a creator, or not mature, because I'd say that Picket Fences is probably one of the more mature works that he's produced, which isn't to besmirch some of the sort of later stuff, but Picket Fences, I think, is just, pretty top tier. But one of the things with David E. Kelley is that you've got his relationship with how he writes women. Now, certainly from Picket Fences and a Maxine character in that, played by Lauren Holly, already it was always a little bit sort of awkward. A lot of the ways that he explored what she was going through was always very heavily reflected by the other men in her life. And that was part of that character's DNA. But at the same time, it just kind of always felt a little bit odd. And then that character kind of resurfaces in Ally McBeal, and kind of that Maxine character is Ally McBeal, only a bit more heightened and a bit youthier, and obviously there's legal courtroom setting in a way that Maxine character was a police sheriff. But you've just got this interesting thing where I think lots of people glommed onto Ally McBeal, and we all remember the phenomenon around Ally McBeal, but also we remember a lot of the conversation around Ally McBeal. And she wasn't really a feminist icon, but she was maybe an icon for a younger woman, like a new sort of type of feminism coming through, even if it wasn't sort of overtly political. It was really just I guess maybe just to use the word again, a reflection of the way that sort of younger women were maybe seeing themselves, and whether those sorts of beliefs, where that doctrine really stuck with them for more than a couple of years, but it certainly felt relevant to that sort of mid to late 90s time period. So it certainly felt of the moment, but I don't think anyone's looking back at Ally McBeal as a feminist statement. And you find these characters regularly throughout his work. But here's a writer that's very interested in writing about women and the experience of being a woman and writing from their, with their perspective. And it's interesting that he goes to this space so regularly. But here we are with Margo's Got Money Troubles, and we're watching this drama series with this writer who's now in his very early 70s, writing this very contemporary story about a young woman who this is what Margo's Got Money Troubles is about. Young woman, she falls for a college professor. She ends up getting pregnant. He wants nothing to do with her. She's trying to get support from her mother, who's a single mother. She doesn't really want to help support a grandchild, so she's kind of on her own. And she ends up finding, as a way to make some money, she opens an OnlyFans account. So the idea of David E. Kelley writing a story in 2026 with the politicization it's never been at a greater peak, writing the story about this young woman who's an OnlyFans model and a young mother, and dealing with these ideas of what it means to be a woman and having her sexuality out in the world, having the world viewing her, and then it's David E. Kelley, so there's always a time when the law starts intersecting with the way that she's trying to live her life and, just trying to raise some money and how it interacts with her family. It's all kind of in there. This is a typical David E. Kelley program through and through.
He has taken the opportunity that being on Apple TV has afforded him and run with. I sense that he's re-energized, that he's given a new sort of contemporary perspective on the issues that you raise.
HBO with Big Little Lies is probably where that first started, but certainly we're on a new renaissance of David E. Kelley.
That's my point.
Yeah.
And to that, I would say I think he's got a muse in Elle Fanning. After watching what a damp squid performance she was allowed to give in The Madison, it is great to see all the star power that Michelle Pfeiffer is bringing to the role of the mother.
Also, David E. Kelley's real-life wife.
And David E. Kelley's real-life wife. she has some extraordinary, and I should point out I've only seen the first episode of this, but even in that episode, she has some amazing moments, as does Elle Fanning, who I just think at the moment is, and has been for some time, I should point out, the most interesting young actress working in Hollywood, certainly the bravest, as some of the opening scenes in this will attest to.
Simon's just gone through that gross thing that male critics do, and they're like, oh, she's so brave. It's because she's naked through a fair bit of it.
There's no denying that she's bringing something that Ally McBeal never brought to the table, and that's, I mean, I think that's worth noting. It's part of
Simon,
who Margo
I think before you get
is.
too defensive, there was a lot of that conversation around girls back in the day, where a lot of the reviews, and look, I remember my review of Girls back in the day, I was absolutely guilty of this. Everyone's like, oh, Lena Dunham's just so brave being sort of, a tubby lady who's getting naked on screen. And people just kept on using the word brave, and I certainly did it. And, maybe it was just like us all being incredibly sort of, sex negative to a certain degree.
I think if the show is going to go there and is going to show those scenes, you've got to acknowledge that it takes a certain conviction to your craft to pull it off, which is what I'm saying. And she does that in this, and Kelly asks it of her, and she makes the most of that as her character would. So to me, this is I think this is a compelling, very funny in parts, teeth gnawing experience in terms of what Margo has to go through to raise her child, and I think it's a terrific show.
The really interesting elements start to come and play, and I talked about this sort of being sort of a feminist thing, but one of the more interesting characters is Nick Offerman in this, and he's maybe more interesting because it is Nick Offerman playing a role which is kind of in line with what we expect from Nick Offerman, okay? But at the same time, like, it's such a sensitive, internalized performance that is delivering in this program as a former wrestler and absent father from Margo's life, who's had some like drug addiction concerns, so started on opioids and then led to heroin. He's just come out of rehab, and part of, I guess, the way that he's trying to find a place in the world is integrating himself into Margo's life. And he's maybe the worst possible person that could be playing a positive influence in her life as a former drug addicted, like, absent parent. But at the same time, he's kind of exactly what she needs in the world. It's a really just interesting character. And again, it's David E. Kelley maybe sort of shining a light on women, but reflected light through the men that surround her. Which it's not, the show I don't think is hugely guilty of that, but certainly there are elements of the show which do that, which is slightly awkward. But by and large, like, this is such a winning performance from Elle Fanning. You've got these other, I mean, you mentioned Michelle Pfeiffer in this. Nicole Kidman decides to take a break from the 1.5 films she does each year and the 45 TV series she does each year. But cinema enthusiast Nicole Kidman's back, and she does, I think, maybe 4 or 5 episodes of this. Not a huge role, but she is contemporary and really sort of vibrant in a way that I don't think she really exhibits of herself in so many of the projects that she chooses. But she's fantastic in this, and there's just all these other great supporting actors around the place as well that all put in there, a couple of moments. And look, Simon, I've never felt older in my life than watching the little kid from Almost Famous playing the older skeezy university professor that ends up impregnating the Elle Fanning character.
That's exactly right. Yes, it's a it's a challenge to face those young faces of your own youth, and now they're all growing up. And I remember when I saw a photo of Jonathan Lipnicki from Jerry Maguire, and he's now this buff sort of guy. Very odd.
But look, you can go from little kids to, like, buff young adults in, like 10, 15 years. Like, that's fine. But he's literally a lecherous university, like, college professor at this point.
Challenging work. All right. So Margo's Got Money Troubles. It's on the Apple TV. How many episodes have dropped for people to be viewing?
Look, this is an 8-episode run. It's like, episodes run anywhere between about like 32 to 41 minutes, I think.
I think there's 3 there now, isn't there, to watch? I think there's
3 now, maybe 3 because it debuted midweek. Look, this, I think it's a fantastic watch. The series, I think, I wouldn't say it runs out of steam. I think it has some puff problems sort of right towards the end. But I think that this show has done so much to win you over by the time that you reach the final episode that, you're more than willing to sort of just ride it through.
Let's stick with the mummy issues and have a look at Lee Cronin's The Mummy.
Can I get 2 slices of pizza? No.
Of course, honey.
No, you never ever finish 2.
Hello?
Mr. and Mrs. Cannon. I'm Deputy Chief at the U.S. Embassy. Your daughter Katie has been found.
She's alive.
It's very important you fully prepare yourself for what you're about to see. No sudden moves. No loud noises.
Hey, Butterfly. It's Mom and Dad.
Yeah, we are here.
Thank you for addressing it by its correct title.
Yes, which I thought at first was a French word, Lee Cronin, but it's not. He's an Irish film director who has made some really interesting films up to date. This is his third feature, and it's his third feature that also takes as its central thematic point the horrific deconstruction of families in general, but certainly the maternal bond. I think the title, although it clearly speaks to the wrapping of a corpse in cloth that comes back to life from Egyptian law, it also speaks to the mummy in this, and the role that motherhood plays.
Sorry, can I interrupt briefly?
Of course.
The title also speaks to the idea that Universal Pictures has a whole bunch of mummy movies and has them under a number of trademarks. By calling it Lee Cronin's The Mummy, I think this film speaks to avoiding legal concerns.
Sure. Yeah, maybe so. That's probably right.
I think it's 100% what it is. Also, Lee Cronin, like, it's crazy to me, a man who nobody's ever really heard of before, like, not really, suddenly being Lee Cronin's The Mummy. It's wild. Sorry, Simon, please continue.
There's a very specific horror movie following who came with him through The Hole in the Ground, which was his first film, which was a relatively small Irish film about a mother and the son who falls into a hole, comes out of the hole and may not be the same son. And then, of course, he did Evil Dead Rise, which was all about possession within the family and that insane actress whose name I can't remember, who played the possessed mother and the impact on her children. So you see what I mean? He brings the terror that exists within families to the surface, and he does it very well in The Mummy. Now, the story is B-movie hokum. Let's face it. It starts with a young couple of parents played by Jack Rayner and Leia Costa. She's got been stationed in a hospital in Cairo. He's a local reporter trying to get some hours under his belt before he's called back to the US. Their little daughter, Katie, goes missing one day. Suddenly the film jumps to 8 years later. They're back in America. He's struggling with a career that's led him to Albuquerque, New Mexico television. She's managed to sort of research her medical career. They've got another young daughter as well as a young son, and they get a call from Cairo that Katie's been found 8 years later. What they don't know and what they're not told is that she's been wrapped in cursed bandages all these years, and they're allowed to bring her home to this small New Mexico town where she's raised in a very creepy house. And as you can tell by my description of this, logic doesn't play a huge part, but it all just surges along with this energy, this sort of cinematic energy that makes you, for the first sort of 40 minutes or so, giggle along and go, oh, God, they'd never do that. Oh, that's ridiculous. Where are the doctors? Or why isn't she in care or something like that? And then at about the halfway point, you go, you know what? I can do this for another hour, or I can just go with the flow. And that was when I literally turned my critical brain off and thought, I'm going to see how this impresses me as just a big, loud horror feature. And it absolutely blew me away. The last 40 minutes of this are just some of the most insanely gory. So be cautious. This has a fairly gleeful attitude to portraying the icky stuff. But also it tells this B-movie story in a way that absolutely generates a lot of excitement and gets you worked up and gets you interested in these actors' roles and the characters' roles and the performances they give. And it's a beautiful looking film too. It's given this real sort of husky darkness, first in Cairo and then in New Mexico. And it's everything about it kind of came together. Yes, it's a little over long. 133 minutes is way too long to this. But those last, like I say, 30 minutes are a wild, wild ride. Be warned, it is icky in places. And I should also point out that This is another film from Warner Brothers. They didn't do preview screenings for this. And I would have thought, off the horror run they've had with Sinners and Weapons, and The Bride failed for them critically and commercially, but it was still, as you pointed out, they swung for the fences. And they're certainly giving this guy, Lee Cronin, plenty of rope to hang himself with if he gets this wrong. And I don't think he gets this wrong. I think he does a terrific job, and it's a really great sort of modern horror film.
Yeah, it's got a really impressive trailer to the point where as someone with like a little girl, I just don't think I want to see this movie.
Is that why you don't like horror films? Because you do get a little bit frightened? Do you not sleep? Do they stay with you for days afterwards?
Not really. Most horror films don't really bother me too much. I just don't really like it that much as a genre.
Because this brings a lot of technical skill, a lot of technical craft. I think a lot of the best work being done today is in genre cinema, whether that's science fiction with Hail Mary or horror with the Sinners and the Weapons and now this. So there's a lot of good filmmaking going on.
I mean, I think it's always been true, though, that most of the more interesting cinema is happening sort of within genre spaces.
Yeah, so do I. But there's certainly a resurgence of it
I think
now.
maybe just the difference these days is that you're just not really finding that many straight dramas anymore.
True, yes, it's being noticed more because it's all up there on the big screen. Yeah, I agree with that as well.
Yeah.
So, what does that do? What part of the podcast is this now?
This is the interpretive dance part of the podcast where we think about our previous reviews and we bring them to life in a second way.
Oh, good get. I want to go, first of all, to what I made you watch through the week, or what I suggested you watch. A little film called...
Speaking of genre stuff.
Now, Meteor is a film. I just said it like you said it. Meteor. How do you say it? Meteor.
A meteor.
Meteor.
My wife.
Sure, this was a film from 1979 that came at the end of the sort of disaster film cycle. It's directed by...
Can I just give a line here?
Yeah.
If you've never heard of the movie, the movie Meteor before,
yeah,
that's understandable.
Yeah.
This is not a well-remembered movie.
No. This is not in the scale of the disaster epics like Towering Inferno or Poseidon Adventure, which were the big ones of the day. This one came several years after that. It's directed by Ronald Neame, who did the Poseidon Adventure. So he's got runs on the board, and it's got a big cast, a big sort of... Well, not really a global cast. They've got American actors doing global accents, which kind of counts. It's about a giant meteor that is hurtling towards Earth, that is, its impact is foreshadowed by a series of splinters from the meteor that crash into mountains, crash into Swedish ski villages, and crash into New York City. In the words of Trevor Howard, they caused what? Do you remember the line?
Actually, I don't remember the line. It's been a big week, Simon.
A shambles.
It was a shambles.
The destruction of half of New York City is described by Trevor Howard as a shambles. And you've got Sean Connery bringing all his misogynistic charm as the leery hero of this, who can't take his eyes off Natalie Wood just as the world is about to win. So, look. This is very much of its time.
I've seen some pretty distant performances from Sean Connery in like so many films, but I've never seen him less engaged in a movie than in this one.
He was... It's such a strange film because they all exist in this subterranean bunker sort of fortress where they're guiding the missiles that are going to destroy the meteor. But they've got pinball machines and they've got a chilled buffet bar down there. Like it's some kind of... Club Med before the end of the world. They've got a lot of time to relax considering there's a meteor hurtling towards the Earth.
Well, I don't really see that many people playing the pinball machines, but that's certainly in the background.
Why
but there's
would they
certainly a
even
lot
put
of
there?
time for Sean Connery to start cracking on to the Russian interpreter that's down there with him.
The beautiful Natalie Wood in one of her final film performances, I must say. The standout for me, and there's some big performances in this, Carl Malden, and we're probably using a lot of names here. Are we going to play a clip from this? Because I really think we should play a clip from this.
That meteor is 5 miles wide and it's definitely gonna hit us.
It's coming apart in a million pieces.
Your government, in collaboration with the best scientific brains at its disposal, developed the project to deal with this emergency.
Attitude correction complete. Situation nominal.
Ориентация закончена. Положение нормально.
Anything go wrong? Once the rockets have been launched, they switch over to their own internal decision-making systems. And if these systems perform perfectly, well then, there's no problem. But if there's a malfunction... What are the odds? Your guess is as good as mine.
We can expect the first splinters in 24 hours. Up another splinter. A big one.
Direction?
The United States. The eastern seaboard.
It's 5 miles wide. It's traveling at a speed of 30,000 miles per hour. And there is no place on Earth to hide.
Simon got me watching this, and the only reason that I really went with it was that I saw Carl Malden was in this. And as a big fan of the Streets of San Francisco, the 70s cop series that kicked off the career of one Michael Douglas, I am obsessed with Carl Malden. I just think he's fantastic.
Good.
And this one, he's rocking a very fancy moustache. Okay, but like he's just... I feel like Carl Malden's one of these figures where certainly... people older than me may kind of know who he is, okay? But I don't know he's one of these actors that people really recall that much. And
No.
Me as a man in my mid-40s talking about being a fan of Street San Francisco, like that's an oddity.
You're an outlier.
Like there is no one else of my age who are familiar with the Streets of San Francisco.
No, you're exactly right. You're exactly right. And Carl Malden and everyone else in this cast, all people that I know and cherish with names like Trevor Howard and Martin Landau and the great, great Brian Keith as the Russian scientist who's very relaxed through this whole thing. And all these sort of supporting cast members who I recognize. But these are all actors and character actors of my generation that I grew up loving, and I just know for a fact that nobody knows who Brian Keith is anymore. Or
no, I have no idea.
So it's on HBO Max. I saw that it was on HBO Max because people were started posting about it. Like I had friends saying, "Oh my God, have you seen Meteor on HBO Max? It's so nuts."
You have a very specific.
I have a bubble.
Simon.
I have a bubble. So if you do get a chance, please check out Meteor. It's got some of the great 70s disaster movie moments. It's having watched it, and I saw this at the movies at Village Cinemas Parramatta with my best mate Scott and my mum, who I was too young to go to the movies by myself, and Scott was a year younger than me, so she took us to see this movie, and I've been obsessed with it ever since. I might have seen it a dozen times over the years, so it is very much comfort viewing for me. I do recognise it's probably not very good.
Look, I mean, I think there's elements of it which are kind of fine.
Yeah, but it's
like,
not very bad.
Elements...
That's the other thing.
Yeah, like there's patches where it's not a very good film at all, but there's one element of it though, which really surprised me that this isn't a more widely known movie. Okay, like everything about this film, I totally get why it's forgotten and it's just a relic that may occasionally appeal to a few like weirdos that Simon hangs out with in his little social circles.
Yep,
okay, like I get how this is the case, but, and I'm going to ruin part of it now because this is a film from 1979, so, you know, you've had your chance, people. As they're trying to save the world, as they're sending both American and Russian nuclear weapons to destroy this meteor out of the sky, there are these shards that are coming off and causing damage around Earth. So Simon mentioned up front, there's a Swedish ski resort that gets wiped out by it.
Still packed with only 2 days to go before the end of the world. People don't give up their Swedish ski holiday, that's for sure.
Look, I mean, I think that's fine. I think that reflects probably how life really works. The thing that kind of really caught me was right at the end, we saw like New York City being destroyed by these meteors come through. And it is a fiery, explosive, attack on New York
Twin
City,
Towers
including
go
taking
down.
out the Twin Towers.
Yeah, exactly.
And so
right.
there's these visuals which are quite legitimate. Like, this is a film which is the only thing that people appreciated about it back in the day. Okay, was that it had like these amazing special effects. And when I saw the meteors, I was like, maybe not so much. But then I saw the cities being destroyed. And I was like, oh, this is actually really kind of cool. But like literally, like you're seeing like hell raining upon New York City in a way where when September 11 happened, how this wasn't a conversational point, I'm not too sure. Like, it was kind of depicted right here on screen. It's really fascinating.
And as someone who was there, I should point out this was a big summer release for Warner Brothers. The summer of 1979-80, I guess it came out here in Australia. Connery was a star, but he didn't quite have that luster that the Untouchables ultimately brought him. He was coming off the Bond franchise. He hadn't done Never Say Never Again, so he wasn't bankable, but he was still a presence. And Natalie Wood was Natalie Wood. This was very much an end of the disaster movie cycle where what haven't we done yet? Oh, Meteor, let's do that.
Yeah, look, absolutely.
Yeah,
Simon, we're going to wind out the podcast with two big questions.
Right.
First of all, let's do Euphoria season 3 because it's interesting.
It is interesting, only because now I should come to say that unlike the rest of the internet, I haven't seen the first 2 seasons of Euphoria. I've seen a couple of episodes here and there, but I come to episode 3 just because I want to see how all these big movie stars slide back into their small screen roles. And by big movie stars, I mean Zendaya, I mean Sydney Sweeney, Jacob Elordi, to a lesser extent Hunter Schafer, Maud Apatow is in. This was really a cast that captured a whole lot of actors right on the cusp, and then most of them went over the cusp. They're all big movie stars now. So watching them trying to fit back into small screen personas is something I can't really recall being done before. I mean, I know TV stars have had hit movies and gone back to their series, but on this scale, it's hard to imagine. And I'm just wondering is this something that sort of is unusual, or can you recall it being done before, and does it work with Euphoria season 3?
Okay, so what you just said isn't unusual in itself, but there is an unusual aspect to it. So I think the comp to use here is probably the time in the 90s where there were these 2 TV shows produced both from Warner Brothers Television, one called Friends, don't know if you remember that one, and another one called ER.
Right.
Now, this was a show where the cast for both of these shows, like there were a number of cast members that went off to do some very big things in cinema while their shows were still on the air.
Like what? See, now I'd know that all the Friends cast had problems.
Yeah, but like they were still like fairly large actors who were selling movies off the back of, hey, this is, I was about to say Matt LeBlanc, but he's probably not the best example
Not so
here.
much
but like
Matt
certainly
LeBlanc. Ed the Talking Monkey baseball
there were a couple
movie.
of efforts to launch a few. There were a couple of efforts with David Schwimmer to launch a few rom-coms, but certainly Jennifer Aniston and Matthew Perry are the 2 to really look at here. Okay, both of them had some pretty big film releases.
No, they didn't. No, their big rolls of the dice were not big films. Certainly not on the scale of Zendaya or Jacob Elordi. They're not coming back to their TV series after, Oscar nominations or blockbuster franchises.
Oh, look, I wouldn't worry too much about the Oscar nominations because I don't think that necessarily equates to. I don't think that creates the cultural impact.
But my point in terms of the size of the...
I think you're quibbling on terms of the size of them. I actually think that culturally, some of the movies that Matthew Perry and Jennifer Aniston were doing during the time of Friends, certainly on that same level. Think about George Clooney over on ER. He was...
Struggled terribly to find it. No, not at all.
Oh, yeah, but come on. He was appearing in things like Batman and Robin, The Peacemaker. Like, these were big movies. I think you're quibbling on this. But where the difference is between what they're doing...
I'm saying that none of them are on the scale of the Euphoria stars.
Well, I think that Zendaya...
Well, see, now you're saying Shelley Long. Well, why don't you say Shelley Long?
Just wait, Simon, just let me finish my thing. Don't try to get argumentative over something which is kind of a bit sort of silly and pointless. I think if you want to go down that route, if you want to sort of actually consider sort of where box office is against what they were doing there, it probably becomes a more interesting sort of thing of going, is Elordi necessarily a bigger movie star than Matthew Perry was back in the day? But I don't want to go down that route. Instead, what I want to say is that the difference between what's happening with Euphoria and what's happening with Friends and ER was that the Euphoria cast have kind of come back to what was effectively a dead TV show. It wasn't currently on the air. So we had, what has been 3-4 years since Euphoria season 2. Like, it's been a while, and there were a lot of questions of, do these actors even want to come back and do the show, which is, like a sort of ephemeral idea of a TV show. Whereas back in the day, like, Friends was a massive TV program that had, tens of millions of people watching it every week. There was no concern that show wasn't coming back year after year. And so there was no concern that the stars of this, who were going off and doing sort of fairly well-known big feature films, there was no question, are they going to come back as Friends? Of course they are. There were questions around George Clooney back in the day of how long is he going to stick around in ER, but suddenly he was around for like 5 seasons of ER, while for 3 seasons of that, he was the, star of a whole bunch of Hollywood features.
So what Euphoria
to me, what's interesting about Euphoria is just this idea of, we've never seen a TV show like this before, where these really big actors who have so many better things they could be doing with their time, okay, are coming back to do this, what will presumably be the final season of Euphoria.
Yeah. Yeah. And having not seen any other Euphorias, I watched the first episode, which, like, as I say, I know is copying a lot of flack online. And while I don't think it pushes any of the performers to any great degree, I think it's certainly watchable television. And plays on, certainly specifically the Sydney Sweeney character, sort of plays on some of the issues she's faced in her movie star celebrity life that I think is making it easier to diss on this show. So my big point is that they're now bringing a lot of baggage back to these roles that these roles didn't have 3 or 4 years ago, pre-Dune, pre-Anyone But You, pre-Frankenstein.
Yeah, maybe. Nah. I don't know.
And you wanted to...
I struggle to think that necessarily... I think the scale of Sydney Sweeney certainly has gotten bigger post-Euphoria, but if you're to think about the sort of viewership for this program, and you and I, Simon, aren't the, target market for the program at all. But certainly I think that the cast of this had developed a certain stature within online viewership where they were bringing a lot of baggage to season 2 of the show. So I don't think this is necessarily a new thing for Euphoria season 3, but certainly I think maybe sort of scale has changed that somewhat, where maybe you're a bit more aware of it in a way that you wouldn't have been back in the day.
Yeah, no, I was aware of its success. It's a success for sure. And what it meant to these stars' trajectory and these stars' sort of movement through Hollywood and what it provided for them. It tapped into a younger audience that were then drawn to these stars on the big screen. And I think the component it played in that has maybe backfired in that it's bringing some of that back to the small screen. And I think that can be challenging.
Okay, let's talk about movie star baggage, because I want to talk to you very briefly about Crime 101, which is a film that I'm pretty sure you reviewed on a podcast, right?
Absolutely, I did, yeah.
So you reviewed it back when it was playing in cinemas and nobody saw it. But this is a film that was made very much to debut eventually on Prime Video, where more people would hopefully see it. And certainly people did see it.
So, sorry, it was made for Prime Video, or it was...
I mean, it was made by Amazon. So it was... The understanding that I have of it was that they made it with the idea that, hey, look, we're going to make this for Prime Video, but we'll give it a cinema release to try to just recoup some of the cost of it.
That's what it feels like, yep.
Yeah. So you've got this movie, which, if people don't know Crime 101, basically it's a modern version of Heat. Like, they've really sort of taken a lot of inspiration from Heat and really applied it to this film. So the texture and tone of this feels so much like Heat. You've got Chris Hemsworth as this he's not really a bank robber, but he's a thief. He steals money from people and sort of
steals jewelry along the 101.
Money, jewels, whatever. So he's got his thing where he's, as Simon just said, he's stealing from people along the motorway, the 101. You've got the police detective who's also chasing after him, and then a very cute Monica Barbaro as the love interest. And, there's a couple of other figures that are just kind of around in this. What's her name? Halle Berry's in this as well. Yeah, but the person that I want to really fixate on here, Simon, because I thought, first of all, Crime 101, really good movie. If you haven't checked it out and you like crime films,
it's not.
I had a great time with it, Simon. I really enjoyed it.
It's a couch movie. You watch this in a cinema and you're bored shitless.
Look, I mean, I didn't see it in the cinema, like, as if I'm going to leave the house. But certainly, I had a great time watching it. I think it's like slightly too long, and I don't know the payoff is necessarily there to justify the length of the movie. But broadly, I think the film ticks certainly a number of boxes where I had a great time sitting on the couch with it. Okay, but Simon, the big question I have is Mark Ruffalo's casting in this. So, Mark Ruffalo is playing a character where, when we're first introduced to him, he's not all that dissimilar to characters we've seen him play before, particularly his character from Zodiac.
And from Task, from the miniseries Task.
Let's just think about just him in terms of, things that he's sort of broadly known for. Okay, so like I think he's well known for playing this type of character in Zodiac, but then you see this character goes through like a little bit of a shift in his life where his wife ends up leaving him, or he kind of leaves her. It's a bit sort of murky about what's happening there exactly. But he like decides that he's going to sort of change his life somewhat, and he embraces yoga and starts to become a healthier human being while also being a detective. Now, the way they execute that element of the story doesn't really work for a whole bunch of reasons. And the number one reason it really doesn't work is that it's Mark Ruffalo playing this guy. So when he stops being the disheveled, sort of overweight cop and then suddenly is walking around with a yoga mat under his arm, you kind of look at him going, this just kind of feels like Mark Ruffalo, real life actor, like intruding back into the life of this character. It just didn't really feel like he was authentically the character as much as he felt like Mark Ruffalo as police detective. And so I was watching this, and the question I want to throw at you, Simon, is at what point do you have to jettison an actor because their real life identity is just too much for the character that you need to inhabit on the screen? If he was just there playing disheveled cop for the entire run of the film, I would have bought it. But him playing cop who starts embracing yoga and becomes more like Mark Ruffalo in real life, like, it was too much of a bridge for me. I couldn't do it.
That's something that I've become very skilled at over the years, separating what I know about the artist's real life persona from what they do on screen. If I was to allow my thoughts or my knowledge of actors' real lives impinge upon how they portray characters, I probably wouldn't see a lot of movies. I had a lot more problems with Crime 101 before worrying about Mark Ruffalo with a yoga cushion. I can see that if an actor in playing a character reminds you of what he does off screen, and at this point in time when Crime 101 came out theatrically, Ruffalo was very loud off screen. He was weighing in on a whole number of
but
issues.
That's been him for like the last 20 years of his career. Like, it just never really stops with him. Like, I think he's so omnipresent.
Why did a yoga blanket push you over the edge when like you say, he's omnipresent?
It was that sort of sign of like the actor, because this is obviously set in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
And it was just something where it became so close to who this actor kind of embodies in real life. And because the character's going through a transformation himself, it just sort of seems so off, him going from schlubby cop to becoming Mark Ruffalo. Like, it just, it became just too close.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said for the LA-ness of a schlubby cop taking on yoga. I guess there's some kind of humor in that that didn't work for me.
But like, I mean, I think it's perfectly fair to think that a cop, well, any person can go through a later in life transformation like that.
Yeah.
Like, it's fine. I just think where this film just really missed a beat was just that casting of Ruffalo in it. Sure. And Ruffalo, who I genuinely quite like, but I just didn't want to see him go through his transformation where he became Mark Ruffalo.
Yeah, I can see that. Sure. He's sort of always been pitched as a leading man, but I sense he's heading into more a character actor type second phase of his career. I think he's going to be, if he was, a leading man up until now, he's going to become more the Peter Falk type. There's another name you can look up, kids, from the Carl Malden era. We're really showing our age on this podcast, haven't we?
I think the kids know Columbo, don't they?
Oh yeah, Columbo's big with the kids.
Yeah.
So he's an actor. Is he coming back as the Hulk in all these Avengers movies?
He's in the new Spider-Man film.
Oh, is he? Okay,
I'm pretty sure.
I did have in the running sheet, kids, a little bit earlier on. I was going to have a look at the CinemaCon trailer. CinemaCon is the big movie theater sort of launch of the summer market titles over in, Las Vegas. But they didn't release a lot of them. They released the Godzilla one, which looks pretty cool.
Are they? It usually takes a couple of weeks for the
the
footage from that
studios kind
convention.
of control that. So
Yeah.
we might look at that in the weeks ahead. But
Yeah. But look,
we'll
yeah, suddenly, yeah. Sorry, distracted. I was just taking a look at what the general consensus around Crime 101 is. Look, I mean, if you want to go by Rotten Tomatoes, they're looking at 88, 85%, but I don't really look at that. I look at Letterboxd these days, and we're looking at general consensus about like a 3.5 to 4-star film.
Sure. Yep, all the boys love it.
Yeah.
All the young white men who dominate Rotten Tomatoes and Letterboxd love this, so good luck to them.
Actually, I'm kind of curious to know what the gender breakdown is for Letterboxd.
I think Letterboxd is a bit more of a playing field. Rotten Tomatoes has often been accused of just being
Rotten Tomatoes does all sorts of issues.
The
so I don't
trailer
really look
bros.
too much at that.
Yeah.
But Letterboxd, I'm really curious about because I think that Letterboxd is defining so much film culture these days.
Yeah, I think it is for sure. All right, let's wrap this
Anyway,
nonsense
folks,
up.
this has been the Screen Watching. Simon Foster, where do people find you online?
Well, I do this little thing called the Screen Space newsletter over on the Substack. You can free subscribe, or you can throw a few bucks my way if you like. And every week I write about all things film.
Yeah, and if people are looking for me, they can find me on the alwaysbewatching.com. It's a newsletter that comes out 5-6 times a week. It's got TV news stories, TV reviews. It's got a TV guide that comes out on Friday afternoons / Saturday mornings. Folks, it's a lot of value for no money at all. But also, if you want to flip me some bucks, feel free to do that as well. You can do that.
Screen Watching can be found at Screen Watching Podcast or on our YouTube channel, where you really should watch what we do, and you can see just how red my cheeks go when Dan argues with me. It's at Screen Watching on the YouTube channel.
You said we can be found at Screen Watching Podcast. Where do people find Screen Watching Podcast?
That's
Are you
on
saying
Facebook.
The podcast itself when you're searching for the podcast, or
No? Facebook its handle is at Screen Watching Podcast. YouTube is just at Screen Watching, and I think on the Spotify. What do we still do on Spotify? That's still a thing, isn't it?
You just search for Screen Watching and
it'll pop up. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
We're on the Instagram too. The kids love the Instagram. All our Peter Falk and Cole Malden references can be heard once again on the Instagram.
Okay, folks, this has been Screen Watching. We'll be back next week with more. Folks, we'll see you then.